Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya for 42 years after seizing power in a 1969 coup. By 2011, the Arab Spring had reached Libya, and protests turned into armed rebellion. NATO began airstrikes to support the rebels, and Gaddafi's forces started collapsing. On October 20, 2011, Gaddafi fled his hometown of Sirte with a convoy of loyalists. NATO aircraft spotted the convoy and attacked. Gaddafi survived the airstrike but was wounded. He and his remaining guards tried to hide in drainage pipes beneath a road. Rebel fighters found them within minutes. Video footage shows rebels dragging Gaddafi from the pipe. He was bleeding from his head. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Keep him alive," but the mob surrounded him. They beat him, kicked him. Someone sodomized him with a bayonet. Another fighter shot him in the stomach, then in the head. His body was taken to Misrata and displayed in a meat freezer for 4 days. Thousands came to see it. The exact details of who fired the fatal shot remain disputed. Libya descended into civil war immediately after his death and remains divided today. Nicolae Ceaușescu. Nicolae Ceaușescu ruled Romania as a communist dictator for 24 years. By December 1989, revolutions had swept through Eastern Europe. On December 21st, Ceaușescu organized a rally in Bucharest to demonstrate his power, but the crowd turned against him mid-speech. They booed him. He fled by helicopter from the roof of the Communist Party building. His wife Elena went with him. They flew to various locations trying to find refuge. Nobody would shelter them. Eventually, they were captured in Târgoviște on December 22nd. A hastily organized military tribunal charged them with genocide and embezzlement. The trial lasted less than an hour. Both were found guilty and sentenced to death. On December 25th, Christmas Day, soldiers took them to a courtyard. Nicolae started singing the Internationale. The firing squad opened fire before he finished. They shot 120 rounds in total. Elena was shot simultaneously. Their bodies were shown on Romanian television that evening. The revolution had succeeded. Romania became a democracy within months. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler ruled Nazi Germany for 12 years and started World War II. By April 1945, Soviet forces had surrounded Berlin. Hitler retreated to his underground bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. On April 29th, he married his longtime companion Eva Braun. The next day, April 30th, at around 3:30 p.m., Hitler and Eva Braun went into his study. Hitler bit into a cyanide capsule and shot himself in the head with his pistol. Eva Braun took cyanide but didn't shoot herself. Their bodies were discovered by aides shortly after. Following Hitler's instructions, staff carried the bodies up to the Chancellery garden. They poured petrol over them and set them on fire. Soviet artillery was still bombarding the area. The bodies burned for several hours but weren't completely consumed. The remains were buried in a shell crater. Soviet troops discovered the charred remains on May 4th. They conducted autopsies and confirmed the identity through dental records. Stalin kept this information secret for years. He told the Allies he wasn't certain Hitler was dead. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8th. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein ruled Iraq for 24 years with brutal authoritarianism. The U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003 and toppled his regime within weeks. Saddam went into hiding. On December 13th, 2003, American forces found him hiding in a spider hole near his hometown of Tikrit. It was a camouflaged pit beneath a farmhouse. He surrendered without resistance. The Iraqi Special Tribunal tried him for crimes against humanity. The trial focused on the killing of 148 Shiite villagers in Dujail in 1982. He was found guilty on November 5, 2006, and sentenced to death by hanging. On December 30, 2006, the day of Eid al-Adha, guards transferred Saddam to the execution site. It was a former military intelligence building in Baghdad. The execution took place at 6:05 a.m. Saddam was calm. He refused a hood. As the noose was placed around his neck, witnesses taunted him. Someone shouted, "Muqtada, Muqtada," referring to Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. Saddam replied, "Is this how you show your manhood?" The trapdoor opened. He died instantly from a broken neck. Video of the execution leaked online within hours. Iraq remained unstable for years after. Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini ruled Italy as the first fascist dictator for 21 years. By April 1945, Allied forces had pushed into northern Italy. Mussolini's regime collapsed. On April 25th, he fled Milan with his mistress Clara Petacci and a convoy of supporters. They were trying to reach Switzerland. On April 27th, communist partisans stopped their convoy near Lake Como. They recognized Mussolini despite his German uniform disguise. The partisans took him and Clara to a farmhouse in Giuliano di Mezzegra. On April 28 at 4:10 p.m., partisan leader Walter Audisio arrived with orders to execute them. He took Mussolini and Clara to a nearby villa gate. Audisio read the death sentence. Mussolini allegedly said, "Shoot me in the chest." Audisio pulled the trigger, but his gun jammed. He grabbed another partisan's weapon. This time it worked. He shot Mussolini in the chest. Then Clara. She tried to shield Mussolini with her body. Both died. The next day, their bodies were taken to Milan. Partisans hung them upside down from a metal girder at a gas station in Piazzale Loreto. A crowd gathered. They spat on the corpses, threw rocks, beat them. The bodies hung there for hours before authorities intervened. Rafael Trujillo ruled the Dominican Republic for 31 years with extreme brutality. He controlled every aspect of Dominican life and renamed the capital city after himself. By 1961, even the CIA wanted him removed. On May 30, 1961, Trujillo was driving on a highway outside Ciudad Trujillo at night. A group of conspirators, including military officers and civilians, waited in ambush. They had positioned 3 cars along the route. When Trujillo's blue Chevrolet Bel Air appeared at 10:15 p.m., the assassins opened fire. Automatic weapons and shotguns. Trujillo's driver was hit but kept driving. Trujillo himself grabbed a gun from the glove compartment and fired back through the rear window. The car chase continued for several minutes. Eventually, Trujillo's vehicle stopped. He got out to fight. He was 69 years old, but didn't surrender. The assassins shot him multiple times. At least 27 bullets hit his body. He died on the roadside. The conspirators took his body and hid it in the trunk of one of their cars. They drove around unsure what to do. Eventually, they contacted military officials. The death was announced the next day. Mass celebrations erupted across the country. 6 of the 7 assassins were later captured and executed by Trujillo's son Ramfis. Anastasio Somoza Debayle was the last of the Somoza family dynasty that ruled Nicaragua for 43 years. By 1979, the Sandinista revolution had made his position untenable. On July 17, 1979, Somoza fled to the United States, then to the Bahamas. Eventually, he settled in Paraguay, where dictator Alfredo Stroessner granted him asylum. He lived in luxury in Asunción with heavy security. On September 17, 1980, Somoza was driving through Asunción in his white Mercedes-Benz. A Sandinista commando team had been tracking him for months. They were members of the Revolutionary Popular Army. As Somoza's car stopped at an intersection, a pickup truck pulled alongside. Commandos in the truck bed fired a RPG-7 rocket launcher. The rocket hit the Mercedes directly. The car exploded. Somoza died instantly. His driver and a bodyguard also died. A second RPG was fired to ensure the kill. The Sandinista government considered them heroes. Francisco Macías Nguema ruled Equatorial Guinea for 11 years as one of Africa's most brutal dictators. He killed or drove into exile about 1/3 of the country's population. By 1979, even his own family and military officers wanted him gone. His nephew, Teodoro Obiang Nguema, led a coup on August 3, 1979. Macías fled the capital and hid in his home village. Obiang's forces found him on August 18th. He was hiding in the forest with his family. During capture, Macías tried to fight but was overwhelmed. His captors took him to Black Beach Prison in Malabo. A military tribunal tried him for genocide, mass murder, treason, and embezzlement. The trial lasted several weeks. Macías appeared confused and possibly mentally ill during proceedings. He was found guilty on all counts. The court sentenced him to death. On September 29, 1979, soldiers took him to the execution site. Local executioners refused to carry out the sentence. They feared Macías had magical powers. Eventually, Moroccan soldiers serving as foreign mercenaries agreed to do it. They executed Macías by firing squad. His body was buried in an unmarked grave. His nephew Teodoro Obiang took power and still rules Equatorial Guinea today, making him one of the world's longest-serving dictators. Pol Pot led the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia and orchestrated the Cambodian genocide that killed approximately 2 million people from 1975 to 1979. Vietnamese forces invaded Cambodia in 1979 and drove the Khmer Rouge from power. Pol Pot fled to the jungle near the Thai border and continued leading Khmer Rouge remnants for nearly 20 more years. By 1997, internal conflicts had fractured the Khmer Rouge. On June 19, 1997, Pol Pot ordered the execution of his former comrade Sun Sen, and his entire family. This was the final straw for other Khmer Rouge leaders. They arrested Pol Pot on June 19th and held a show trial. They sentenced him to life under house arrest. He was held in a small hut in the jungle. On April 15th, 1998, Pol Pot died in his sleep. He was 72 years old. Khmer Rouge Radio announced he died of heart failure. His body was cremated quickly on a pile of old tires and garbage. Some suspect he was poisoned or committed suicide to avoid capture by Cambodian government forces who were closing in. An autopsy was never performed. He never faced international justice for his crimes. Cambodia continues dealing with the trauma of his genocide today.